We're back with Matchday Live on LCFC TV as the Blue Army travel down to North London as the Foxes face Tottenham Hotspur at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's a 5:30 kickoff. That means we're just under an hour away. Hopefully we'll see Leicester get their first win of the season. Let's get all of today's team news with our commentator Chris Parrott.
Welcome to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Dan. There's a nip in the air, but it's a glorious vantage point high above the pitch here. And 4 changes from 13 days ago at Brighton. Wout Faes straight in for his debut this afternoon here at Tottenham. Timothy Castagne and Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall also start. Patson Daka keeps his place, so both Jamie Vardy and Kelechi Iheanacho are on the bench for Leicester, who have Danny Ward in goal, a back 4 of James Justin, Johnny Evans, Faes and Castagne. 3 in midfield is Wilfred Ndidi, Yuri Tielemans and Dewsbury-Hall. James Maddison on the right of a front 3, Harvey Barnes on the left with Daka through the middle. On the bench for Leicester, Everson, Vardy, Albrighton, Iheanacho, Perez, Amati, Pratt, Thomas and Soumare. From a Tottenham perspective, they played in midweek in the Champions League, lost against Sporting in Lisbon. Big news today is that Son is only on the bench. 6 months ago, Antonio Conte called him undroppable, but he is left out of the starting 11. And they have Hugo Lloris in goal. A back 3 of Davinson Sanchez, Eric Dyer and Clement Longley. We think the 4 across midfield is going to be Ryan Sessegnon, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, Rodrigo Bentancur and Ivan Perisic, with Dejan Kulusevski and Richarlison either side of Harry Kane. But who plays right wing back for Tottenham is up for debate. It could be Perisic, it could be Sessegnon, it could even be Kulusevski. We won't know that until kickoff. On the bench for Tottenham, Fraser Forster, the sub-keeper, Doherty, Skip, Brian Hill, Emerson Royale, Romero, Tanganga, Bissouma and Son. But from Leicester's point of view, 3 changes from Brighton. Wout Faes in for his debut.
Perfect. Thank you very much to Chris Parrott. Chris, we'll hear from you again, of course, just before kick-off, where you'll be on commentary alongside Dean Hammond, and we'll speak to Dean at around about 5 o'clock as well. I've got to introduce these 2 guests in the studio alongside me, Steve Walsh and Matty Fry, a former forward, a former defender. Welcome to you both. I'll go to Walshy first because he arrived on time. In fact, he arrived early today, didn't you, Walshy?
Dan, I did, yeah. It's great to be back, to be honest. I've missed it. So, my first game, so I'm hoping that I can bring some positive vibes today.
Yeah, it's always great having you here on Matchday Live. And Walshy was early and on time. Matty Fry, less so, but you're here and that's all that matters, eh, Matty?
All prepared, all ready for it. Excited. Good to be back alongside Walshy as well. So, looking forward to it.
Hopefully seeing Leicester get their first win of the season.
Hopefully, even though last time I did back them to get a smash and grab victory, that didn't play out too well on that occasion. But again, 2 weeks on from that, or is it 3? It's been a while since the last game, hasn't it? So obviously that gives a lot of time for Brendan to reassemble things, have a look at it, and a bit more time for the players to sort of get a togetherness and time to reflect on a few things and hopefully put that right this afternoon.
Yeah, it wasn't quite 3 weeks, but it has been 13 days since Leicester last played, of course, against Brighton. It feels like a lot longer than that, doesn't it? We've got plenty coming up, by the way, on Matchday Live here on LCFC TV today. We'll be looking back actually at that game 13 days ago against Brighton. A bitterly disappointing afternoon for Leicester City there. We'll hear from Harvey Barnes. He's spoken to myself and to LCFC TV this week at Seagrave, looking ahead to this game with Tottenham, and we'll also take a close look, of course, against today's hosts Spurs, and hear from that man there, Antonio Conte, who's been speaking glowingly about Leicester City. Before we go anywhere though, obviously let's get your thoughts. You're always positive, Walshy, aren't you? And we feel like we need a little bit of positivity at the moment, just the way things are going on the pitch. But you never know what might happen, and you look at the form book, Leicester bottom, Spurs third, and have started relatively well. A lot of people would maybe back the home side, but you never know with Leicester City, do you?
You don't. And as much as, we are bottom of the league, it does hurt everybody. The confidence is low at the minute. The vibe around you, everywhere you go at the minute, it's just a bit of negativity, and we've got to. These players have got to really start and fight more. They've got to show us, you know, that counter-attacking football that we were so good at, and we've, you know, there's enough strength in this squad. You know, look at the team today, and it's a strong team, but they've got to start and show that heart on the sleeve. Really, that's what I felt missing, and I was alarmed at the Brighton game because of what was happening, and it was disjointed. There's definitely today there's a little bit more balance in the team for me, but I didn't like it when players were having a go at each other. It shows that things are not quite right in that dressing room, where they've got, you know, so somebody in there has got to be a leader, and you know, obviously without Schmeichel now, you've got Johnny Evans who that responsibility would fall down to, and he's really got to start and be a bit more vocal, I think, with everybody, and try and keep that shape of the team that can kind of, you know, you look at it, for me, we were getting caught out in positions that we shouldn't be by purely not keeping the shape, and then we just kind of lost the plot. So it was disappointing to see that against Brighton, because from what I've seen, I missed the first game, but I think we were 2-0 up against Brighton, weren't we? Then I watched I was here for the Southampton game, and for 56 minutes I'm saying to Ian Marshall that Southampton will get relegated this season. That's how bad I thought they were for 56 minutes of that game. And then they go and turn it round, and they've showed us what a decent team they are. So, you know, I got that completely wrong, but they looked awful. We made them look awful, and I thought, hang on a minute, the signs of, you know, we've been a bit unlucky here. You know, we've been 2-0 up, like I say, and then Man United didn't look any better than us, for me, when we played them. I didn't think they were fantastic. Chelsea, obviously, we had a chance, an opportunity, but they with the red card, and they've scored 2 goals to win it 2-1. So when you look at it, there's the Arsenal and the Brighton game, but the Brighton one did you know, show me concerns. But, you know, we've got a new centre back now. We've had 13 days, did you say, to have a look and try and you know, settle him into the team. It's always a risk when you put a new player in straight away. But look. It sounds like he's a strong player, so we'll have to see. I'll judge it, because I don't, you know, I've only read about him at the moment. So we'll have a good look at him today, hopefully with Johnny Evans, that they can form a good relationship and understanding. And I know that onus does fall on to Johnny Evans quite a lot.
Yeah, we'll talk about Watford in just a moment, but while she's been talking about that Brighton game, unfortunately, we do need to relive it. Let's take a look back at the best bits then from that game 13 days ago.
At their feet, and it's played forward now. Barnes, edge of the area. He slips it left to Daka. Daka, low ball across. It's going to be a tap in, and Iheanacho scores! Barely a minute gone, and Leicester City have the perfect start at the Amex. Crosses again, high in towards Welbeck. Past him, all the way to Trossard. Lifts it back in again towards the far post. Heads go up, and it's in. It's 1-1. Converted at the far post there by March, who was stealing in with 9 minutes gone. It's Brighton 1, Leicester 1. And he's coming forward here, straight through the Leicester back line. He's got a long line in Wepu. He's gone right, and a chance. It's in for 2-1, and Moises Caicedo has turned it around here for Brighton. Leicester backed off and backed off and backed off. The space opened up, and Wepu could have gone for a goal himself, but gave it to Caicedo. Over the top here, Daka will get there. Patton Daka's through. Daka! There are normally goals when he's around. It's 2-2 at the Amex. Brighton playing very high up the field here. If Leicester can win it off them and get it forward quickly. Well, they're on the back foot here again, because Trossard's in. It's a third for Brighton, and it looks like this one will stand. The goals keep on coming here on the south coast. Trossard has it by the left corner flag, trying to run past Ndidi on the outside. He goes off the pitch, he's back in it now. It's a penalty. The whistle has gone. McAllister steps forward now, and it's straight down the middle. It's a fourth for Brighton, and it might be a fourth that sees off Leicester City. 97th minute, McAllister steps up now, bends it. That is number 5, and that is a quite outstanding goal from one of the outstanding players on the field today. 5-2.
Yeah, we won't dwell on that game too much or look at any analysis really from it. We can just look at the fact that hopefully Leicester can bounce back from that, and they've had a little bit of time to do that.
I think that's the best thing when it isn't going your way and you find yourself in the situation that we do find ourselves in. When you're playing well or when you're winning games, you want them to come thick and fast. In this scenario, you've had more time, and I think that's what's needed when results aren't going the way you'd want things, performances haven't been quite at the levels that we'd normally expect. I think with that 13-day break, gives a bit of time to work on certain areas and sort of regroup, find that togetherness. So I think in this circumstance, it works better in Leicester's favour. There's a bit of time between games, so I think that could play in Leicester's favour today.
Walsh, you mentioned earlier, obviously the arrival of Wout Faes. He missed out that Brighton game due to, I think, the visa issues, but obviously he starts today. And Walsh also said about leaders on the pitch. He's led Belgium's youth team at a number of different levels. He captained his old side Reims in France as well. So he's got that experience. He's got a leadership. I think that's one of the reasons clearly that Leicester have brought him in. Are you looking forward to seeing him in action today?
I am. From the games that I've seen him in previous, he leads. Man marking is really strong. He reads the play exceptionally well. Likes a tackle, which today you've got to put bodies on the line. You've got to really defend for everything that there is. Get players around you, and he's prepared to do that. So yeah, obviously he's thrown in the deep end, but it makes sense. He's a natural defender. Hopefully he can lead, even though players around him are new to him, but he's had time to bed into the team, and I'm sure Brendan's been doing a lot of shape this week. So I'm excited to see what he can deliver, and sort of like what was touched on, that leadership, that togetherness can bring players into position and sort of organise the back four.
Yeah, I'm sure Leicester fans have looked at clips and everything pretty much about Wout Faes, Walshy on social media and his former clubs. And as Matty says, he loves a challenge, he loves to win the ball, loves to head the ball.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit old-fashioned, dare I say it. You maybe were an old-fashioned defender.
That kind of immediately says to me he's got to be careful, you know, in the Premier League with, you know, tackling anywhere around the box, because that's one place that you've got to be very careful. But it does sound like he is a strong physical player, and it is something that we need, because you know there is definitely a weakness in physicality in this team, and that's where it was last year as well. Let's not get that wrong. There was definitely needed someone like this, but I'm kind of eager to see him play. But I'm just you know, when you're saying he likes a tackle and he likes to do this, be careful, you know, anywhere in and around the box. But in the Premier League, you know how players can go over quite easily, and penalties are given. So we've got to be careful. We've given one away, a silly one again against Brighton. So it's important that he eases himself into this game and just defends right, keeps the shape, and they cover each other, Johnny Evans and him, because what I've seen this season is that we're getting exposed, you know, one-on-one situations, two-on-one overloads, and it's caused us problems because, you know, people in front of us aren't doing the job right, and we've been all over the place. We really have. So if you get that solidity, get that shape, and that won't happen, and hopefully we can grow into this game and be solid. That's what we need to do today.
It probably is a little bit of a baptism of fire though for Wout Faes, isn't it, Matty? Because you look at the striker he's coming up against in Harry Kane. He's scored 18 goals against Leicester City in his career. He's probably going to become the Premier League's leading goal scorer ever. So he's coming up against one of the best in his very first game. He's
coming up against a world-class forward, isn't he? And the thing with Kane, he can score from near enough anywhere, not just around. He drops in, he links the play. Just an intelligent forward, but give him half a yard and he's going to punish. And unfortunately, he thrives playing against Leicester. Another player that we haven't touched on so far, Richarlison, he's always been a nemesis. But in the Premier League, you're going against world-class opposition, and there's no better time. You've got to be prepared for it, and whether it's today or further down the line, and obviously it is today on it, you've got to be up for it, the challenge against playing against world-class players, i.e. in Kane. It'd just be brilliant if we can get something where we can keep it solid and prevent him from scoring, which he tends to do. So I'm saying that this time, back him to score, and hopefully he won't on this occasion.
Matty, there's three of them there. The Kulusevski's been, for me, he's been fantastic. He looks sharp, he's dangerous. So you've got him Kane, Richarlison, 3 players.
Son
You've
off
got
the
your
bench.
hands full today. You really have. So we're going to have to be right. And obviously, like I said, Brendan's had this 13 days to work on and know roughly who's going to be playing. Whether it was Son or not, it doesn't really matter. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a difficult evening for Leicester. But if they've got that mental strength today, and they've got that. Obviously, they're lacking in confidence, but if they can just keep it for the first 20 minutes, 0-0, and grow into the game, then they could get something from this game.
Yeah, Tottenham certainly have threats up front, as we've mentioned, with Kane, Kulusevski and Richarlison, but Leicester themselves have threats going forward, of course. One of those is Harvey Barnes. I sat down with him this week at Seagrave to preview the game against Tottenham. Harvey, next up, Spurs, of course, away from home in the Premier League this weekend. What are your thoughts ahead of that one?
Yeah, it will be a tough game for us. We know they're a good side, but I think for us it's a great opportunity for us to go and get that first result of the season and sort of turn our season around from what's obviously been disappointing for us so far. It's a good opportunity and hopefully one to go and take.
Yeah, how much hunger is there in the group to turn things around, as you said yourself?
Yeah, a lot. It's difficult when you're in this little spell. You don't know exactly what's not going right for us. We're doing some things well in games, and then other things which never have normally been a problem are letting us down. So the lads are desperate to go and get that first win, and I think as soon as that comes, you'll see a completely different confidence within the side, and I'm sure the results will start flowing in then.
Runs like this happen to any teams really, at any level throughout a season. I guess it's probably just magnified a little bit when it's right at the very start of one.
Yeah, like you say, I think we've had spells like this before. It's just like at the beginning of the season, when you look at it now, we haven't got a win on the board. It just adds that little bit more pressure to go and get that first win, that's all. But like you said, teams and us have go through these runs, and we've come through it before, and we'll definitely come through it again stronger.
There was a break, of course, last weekend, so you've had a couple of weeks now in training. Has that helped the group, do you think, to have a little bit more time out on that training?
Maybe, yeah, maybe it will have. It gives you that sort of extra little period to set up for this weekend's game. I think for us, it's we've always had a good group here, good team spirit, so that's never been a problem. So the extra week won't have changed that, but I think for us, it's just all about the full focus for Spurs, and like I said earlier, hopefully that's the kickstart for us.
You got that goal away at Chelsea, of course, a couple of weeks ago. I think everyone was left scratching their heads how Leicester didn't at least get an equaliser, if not go on and get a winner in that game. Things just didn't seem to go Leicester's way, but you must have been personally pleased with your goal itself, and that must have given you confidence.
Yeah, I think. Obviously, like you said, I was also pleased with the goal. Probably more disappointed afterwards that we didn't have as many good opportunities or any more real chances in the game to level it up. We were disappointed with the goals we conceded. And I think, even though we have been scoring goals this season, our actual amount of chances created in games or the normal sort of football we're used to playing has probably not been quite there, and that little bit of final product in the final third has been lacking a little bit. So, for myself and for the rest of the attacking players, we know that we need to help the team out as much as we can by scoring goals, creating goals. That's going to help us as much as we can. So, of course, I was pleased with that, but there's plenty more to add.
And you mentioned Spurs, obviously, the fact that it will be a tough game. That goes without saying when you play against Tottenham, particularly an Antonio Conte side. What is it about them that makes them difficult to play against? Is it the system? Is it the fact they've got a lot of very good attacking players?
I think a little bit of both. They've obviously got a lot of quality within the squad. They set up well as a team. Of course, like you said, the manager has them set up well, and they're very structured, so they can be difficult to break down at times. But for us, we've got a lot of quality within our team as well. If we approach the game right and set up right, there's no reason why we can't come away with that with a really good result. So for us, we're really positive.
He speaks well, doesn't he, Harvey Barnes, Matty, and obviously he's speaking with confidence. I think that the players have to, but he himself said in there that between the players, the group, there's still a good mentality amongst them. They're obviously all good mates, I think, in the squad, which probably helps things and helps that even during runs like this, there still feels like there's a togetherness at Seagrave at the moment. Yeah,
there is. I think dwelling on performances and what's gone on, you can only harp on about certain things, and sort of you saw there on the way he speaks and everything, he's looking forward to the game, knowing it's against a very good opposition in Tottenham and they can score from all areas. But at the same time, when we flip it for Leicester, in terms of attacking force, a Harvey Barnes in full flight is something that anyone would want to come and see, and most fullbacks in the division wouldn't want to face. But I think on sort of today, it's that communication, and that's where it comes in, the mental side of it, and together as mates and friends in the team, where the communication on the road previous was a little bit lacking. So today it's imperative on the defensive side of his game that he gets back in, communication between him and James Justin, dealing with any threats, anything in between the lines. Can he cut out the ball in between and work hard as the unit, and not also himself in the midfield 5 as such, if he drops back in, but also the communication with his fullback, which will be important, because obviously Tottenham will bomb on the wing backs, and then obviously the inside forwards will come in, so it's an area to work on. So that communication and that togetherness, being there, a companion, a friend behind him, that will play a major part in the game today.
Yeah, do you think it will be a 5 almost across the midfield when Leicester don't have the ball?
I think it has to be, yeah, with the way that Tottenham play. You know, they do bomb forward, and they're a very fast counter-attacking team. Obviously Conte's a different style, but he's what I've noticed with Tottenham now, the work rate stepped up. They are really organised now, and they haven't been. You remember, I think it was before he came, that they were all over the place. People were walking around. He's got them working really hard now, and they're a hard team to beat. He's got some good signings, some good new signings. So Tottenham are going to be up there, at the end of the season. You're almost saying that the top 6 are back to the top 6 again, because they weren't for 1 year. All them teams have strengthened massively. And it's going to be even harder, and that's why it's been a difficult start for Leicester. We've not hit the ground running. The performance levels haven't been to the standard what we know that they can play at, these players, and so hopefully now that they've had time this last week or so just to take stock, and because there's always that saying that it's great to have a game after you've lost straight away, but I think this time it's reverse of that is the fact that they've had these days, and they've got a new player that's come into the team. I think that's kind of added a bit of injection into them, and I think you'll see a different kind of performance, in the sense of there won't be no towels being thrown in. They'll be working hard today. I think the fact Ndidi's back as a midfielder now is important. I think you miss him so bad. He's the one who how many tackles and does he make in a game, and he just shores things up for me. So that security is good. KDH, I think he is very important. He's a worker, and I think we massively missed him in that Brighton game. Massively. The Vardy situation. Daka's had a good finish, and he's been given his chance now. Let's see a bit more of him. I'm not convinced yet, but he's still, he had a nice tidy finish against Brighton and got us back into that game, and it's not a game that we really wanted away at Tottenham after being beaten by Brighton. But listen, we've done it before. We've played well here, but we are up against a big, a very useful team.
Yeah, let's get some insight then from the Tottenham Hotspur point of view with journalist Rob Guest and their manager Antonio Conte after they lost their first game of the season this midweek. Despite sitting third in the Premier League, there's a feeling around the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium that Spurs haven't been at their best at the start of this new season. Despite only dropping 4 points in the league, the consensus among these fans is that performances haven't been up to what they would have expected considering the end they had to last season.
It's been a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest, when you look at it. When you look at the Premier League table, Spurs flying high, they're in third, 1 point off the top, unbeaten, lost for the first time on Tuesday in the Champions League, conceded 2 late goals against Sporting CP. But when you look at the performances haven't been there. Spurs maybe have been quite lucky in some games when they've not played well, to manage to grind out the wins or manage to grind out a point. And I think on Tuesday, their luck just finally ran out. I think the defeat has been coming this season, just going on the performances. And then, Tuesday, it finally happened. But then in terms of the Premier League, I think they've started well. They probably think they could maybe have, a few more points on the board. But I think they've got to be happy, especially when you take a look at how they've played in the games.
This 3-1 win for Spurs in May saw Harry Kane score his 18th goal against the Foxes in all competitions. Also on the score sheet that day for Spurs was Heung-min Son, who is yet to find the net at the start of this new season. The South Korean, though, has the full backing of his manager Antonio Conte, who knows this will be a tough test today against Leicester, particularly given that defeat in Europe in midweek.
You know very well that you have to try in every game to get a win. This has to be our mentality, and for this reason you have to understand that when we lose, we are totally in the opposite side, and for this reason I think that we have to feel, we need to be a bit angry and to try to have a good reaction, because now we have the possibility to play another game and in Premier League. For us it's important to get a win, but at the same time you know that you are going to play against Leicester, that the table in this moment for me is not fair for them, because we are talking about a really good team, a really good squad. We are talking about Brendan Rodgers, that is a really good manager that won in his career, and for this reason we have to pay great attention.
What have you made, Matty, of Spurs at the start of this season? Because as we heard in that they've dropped 4 points in the Premier League, but the fans have said that the performances maybe haven't been to what they would have expected, and then it kind of all culminated, if you like, in that defeat in Portugal in midweek in the Champions League.
In terms of points, they're right up there, sitting high in the table. But in terms of actual performances, I don't think they've reached the heights at the minute. And you can see by obviously the changes today, Son in particular, hasn't managed to get a goal this year, and already Conte's thought, no, he's going to come out, which we've already talked about the front three. But on the Leicester side, I don't think Tottenham are the most creative of teams. They've got quality in the forward areas, yes. If we can stop that supply into those players, then I don't think they've got anyone who can unhinge a defence. I think they're lacking in that in terms of opening up a team. But again, it's difficult to stop it going into 3 quality players. And then you hear in the interview there where Tottenham feel like they want a response, so they're going to be angry. They're going to get after Leicester team. So that might play into Leicester's hands really, because everyone expects a Tottenham victory, other than obviously Leicester preparing and wanting 3 points themselves. But from a wider perspective, everyone's expecting Tottenham to play well, revenge sort of defeat on Wednesday or Thursday, whenever they played in, and then get 3 points and push on. But I don't think it'll be straightforward, and as I mentioned, they're not the most creative for teams, but they have quality in them areas, and it'll be, can Leicester nullify the spaces? Walsh touched on it before, but Leicester have been too open this season, so if they can reduce them gaps, be nice and compact and be solid and play the way into the game. Last year, first half performance away from home at Tottenham was really good, patient, and then it was just a slip up before half time, but really played well in the first half, and would like to see the same today. So I think they go in with confidence, Leicester. It's all on Tottenham, and it's something where Leicester can thrive on that, because they'll know the pressure's on Tottenham to perform. Keep nice and steady, nice and solid, and just stay in the game.
Yeah, when you look at Tottenham's last 5 results in the Premier League, Walshy, obviously there are those 2 draws in there, as we keep mentioning. One of those, and as you can see, away at Chelsea, one of them away at West Ham, two places that, well, the London derbies effectively, aren't they, for Tottenham? So they're not bad points. They've actually, on paper, had a really good start to the season. It's just that the performances haven't quite been there.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of reform for Tottenham, isn't it, really? And they're not hitting them levels that they think, well, like the fans have been expecting, but still, you can see the change in the team, in the squad, in the work ethic. I think it's important that Leicester win their individual battles today. I think they've got to look at that, because they didn't win them at Brighton, and when I was seeing so many dispossession of the ball in midfield, and then you're on the back foot, people not tracking back, that can't happen today. We have got to be careful how high we play the line as well from the back. That's important that we get that right, and just ease the way into the game, like I said earlier. But them individual battles for me are very, very important, and it's the first thing that you should look at. When you're playing against someone, right? He's my man, really. I've got to get the better of him, and that's got to happen all over the park today.
Yeah, there have been 2 defeats and 1 victory so far at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium since it opened a few years ago. Sitting there for us this afternoon on co-commentary duty is Dean Hammond. Good afternoon, or good evening to you, Dean. How is it there, firstly? It's a pretty magnificent stadium.
Good evening, gents. Yeah, Dan, the stadium's incredible. The pitch is magnificent. So it's all set up for a spectacle. Like you say, Tottenham have had a brilliant home form, but the Leicester players are warming up. They look relaxed, they look composed, there's a smile on faces, and they look very prepared for the game.
What are you expecting today, Dean?
A tough game, Dan, a really tough game. Tottenham, the fellas have just mentioned it there in the studio. You'll be expecting a reaction from them after the Champions League defeat, and a tough challenge for Leicester. Tottenham seem to concede possession quite a lot and allow the opposition to have the ball. So Leicester need to be careful of that, not get too comfortable in possession, and when there's a turnover, get caught in a counter-attack, because that's Tottenham's strength, playing that counter-attacking football. But I believe there'll be opportunities for Leicester today. You look at the team selection, there's creative players on the pitch, there's pace, there's craft, there's creativity. So if Leicester can be disciplined and resilient at times and weather the storm, they could get a result today, Dan.
Yeah, we had Matty Fryer, Dean, saying that they don't have maybe much creativity in the middle of their midfield. So how do you stop them getting the ball forward to those really devastating players like Kane, like Kulusevski, and today like Richarlison?
Well, I think, like I just mentioned there, Tottenham, they can see possession, so they almost set traps, Dan. They allow you to have the ball, and they want to win it back when you're attacking, because then they have more space. They don't necessarily have to get the ball into the creative players then. They break with 1, 2, 3 players and get themselves in one-on-one situations. So that's what Tottenham like to do. So can Leicester be a little bit cute, and can they play a little bit deeper today, and can they play on the counter-attack, because they do have pace in the team themselves, especially with Patson Daka up front. So look, Leicester are going to have to work very, very hard today. They're going to have to close the ball down. They're going to have to concentrate as a unit defensively all over the pitch, not just the defensive players, the midfield players, the wide players, the attacking players. Keep that shape, but a lot of concentration is needed today against this Tottenham team, because when you switch off for a moment, when you feel comfortable, that's when Tottenham are their most dangerous.
Yeah, you mentioned those forward players there, obviously the likes of Patson Daka, Harvey Barnes, James Maddison. When Leicester have the ball, you think it'll be a 3, and then off the ball maybe a 5 in the midfield?
I think so. I think what you'll get, Dan, is that Ndidi will hold and be very, very disciplined in that role. It will definitely be a 3 when they're attacking. You'll like to see Tielemans join in, Dewsbury Hall join in as well, and indeed he'd just be very, very disciplined. But when they haven't got the ball, you'd expect Harvey Barnes to fill in, James Maddison to fill in, not leave the the fullbacks isolated in one-on-one situations. So it has to be a real team effort today. But I think Leicester need to be brave as well, because they need to bring that belief back in themselves and that confidence back in themselves, because they're good players. They've proved it for a number of years at this level, and they can beat any team on their day. So I'd like to see them with the ball be a little bit braver and take a few more opportunities.
Well, thank you very much, Dean. We'll hear from you again in around about 15 minutes' time when we head to our commentary team of Dean Hammond and Chris Parrott. Let's get a quick reminder then of today's team news. If you are just joining us here on Matchday Live on LCFC TV, what are we now? We're about 25 minutes or so away from kickoff at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And from a Leicester City point of view, I suppose that the headline team news is that Wout Faes makes his Foxes debut at centre half. He'll play alongside Johnny Evans in front of goalkeeper Danny Ward. James Justin and Timothy Castagna are the two full-backs. It's a midfield three, we think, of Wilfred Ndidi, Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall and Yuri Tielemans, with Harvey Barnes and Maddison either dropping in as a 5 or going forward as a 3, with Patson Daka up front. From a Tottenham Hotspur point of view, they lost their first game of the season in midweek away in Portugal against Sporting. Because of that, and because of the fact he hasn't scored all season, Heung-min Son drops to the bench. Richarlison and Kulusevski are the two wingers for Spurs. So they line up with Lloris in goal, Longley, Dyer and Sanchez as the three centre-halves. Sessegnon and Ivan Perisic are the wing-backs. Bentancur and Højbjerg the two central midfielders, with Richarlison and Kulusevski supporting Harry Kane. Quick one, Matthew, before we hear from Brendan Rodgers then. We heard from Dean Hammond, of course. They're speaking about the Foxes and going forward, how they can hurt Tottenham. And that really is up to the pace, if you like, of Barnes and of Daka and the creativity of James Maddison.
I think it is, but from the game last year, you saw the needed patience in the build-up play where there was. And then it might open up second half. It might not always be, you've got counters straight away. There is pace, we know that. And it worked well against Brighton, where there was a threat definitely over the top, and Tottenham aren't the quickest at the back, so that might open up. But it might be later on in the stages where you have to, that little bit of moment, that bit of quality, whether it's Maddison in a pocket or whether Barnes bursting through, or it could play into the hands of substitutions. Jamie Vardy, I'm sure he's chomping at the bit to get his opportunity. Kelechi scored previous game. He'll be wanting to obviously play a part in the game, so it might not be necessarily the starting 11. It might be a squad, a togetherness, someone who comes on and might influence it. But players you mentioned there have the quality. They've shown it before, and they will be a threat.
Yeah, we know there's quality certainly in this Leicester City squad. One man, of course, that knows there's quality in the group is manager Brendan Rodgers, and he was asked in the week how he's keeping things positive at the training ground.
Well, yeah, of course it's difficult in terms of results, but what we've tried to do is just keep the environment light and making sure that the players, we understand we been in a situation that we haven't been in here before, where the results haven't gone our way and the performances aren't to the level that we would want. But I think what's important is that we have to be brave. We have to continue to show that bravery. Sometimes when you're not quite in your game, you can maybe lose that aggression, but you can't afford to do that. You got to still press the game. You still got to be aggressive, and importantly, you have to defend very, very well collectively. So we've been able to look at all those aspects of our game, like I've said before, bringing a clarity and making sure the focus is there for the players, and for me it's straightforward. You just come into work and enjoy working with the players, and like I said, just trying to ensure that we can do the basics well.
You're playing a Spurs side who've won 6 in a row in the Premier League, third in the table, so it's hard to see or recall a worse time to play them in a way. What sort of challenge is that for you?
Well, it's clearly a big challenge. They've, like you say, they've done very, very well last season into the Champions League, and got some very, very talented players. And Antonio, he works how he works, and he's got them very organised, and they have that quality there. So we know it's going to be we know it's going to be a really difficult game at whatever stage you went there, whether you're in your best form or not. But like I said earlier, you have to have that bravery. You can't sit back and just let it happen. So for us, our intention is to go and look to play our game, go and play with that courage that we've shown many times, and that aggression in our game. And like I say, if we can cut out our mistakes, then it gives us a much better chance to get a result.
But you look at the fixtures to come, the likes of Forest, Bournemouth, Wolves, Palace, Leeds. The next month could see a very different picture, couldn't it?
Yeah, but we think through to when the games finish in November. There's a great opportunity to push on. There's no doubt we had a tough fixture list, but in saying that, we should have more points. But you have to deliver, and that's what we aim to do. So, but listen, I totally get it. We haven't made a good start at all, but I'm very confident in the players, and from what I'm seeing, that they're very determined to get the result.
Yep, confident there, Brendan Rodgers. We know you're confident, Walshy. You always are for Leicester City. We're just seeing again some pictures from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Really is a fantastic looking ground. So hopefully Leicester can get their second victory there. Jamie Vardy scored a penalty, I know, in that win a couple of years ago for Leicester City, and he's got a good record against Tottenham. So he'll know that coming off the bench, he knows what it takes to score against Tottenham.
I'd rather have him starting, Batesy, but it's not my bag. But no, listen, from clearly what Brendan's saying, it must have been a horrible 13 days. What it's like, Matt, when you lose a game, it's all doom and gloom. It's ups and downs of football, this is, and yet it's more down than up, obviously, at the minute. So we would welcome a confidence booster, yeah, with a result today. But again, they're going to have to give everything and work so hard and keep that shape in and out of possession. But it's a wonderful stadium to go and play. I've been there just to have a look around the place. I went to do a stadium tour with my lad, and God, it's an incredible place. It really is. And the atmosphere, it's quite closed in. It seems it when you're in the stadium. So it's going to be very loud and noisy, and it's going to take players, to have characters to bounce back from this is going to be hard mentally. And that's where we've got to get it right, and that just starts with doing the basics right and keeping the ball and keeping the shape and what the game plan is. Brendan Rodgers, like I said, he can only do so much, and then help the ones out who might be just that he knows it's kind of affected really. But you've got to, as a player, roll your sleeves up and go, right, I'm going to show you now that I'm a better player than you to start off with, whoever you're playing against, and like I said, win that early battle if you can. Win your first header as a centre back. Keeper, do things right in the first minute. And just don't take any risks and chances. Like I said, do not dive in anywhere around the box, because all these things, giving free kicks away in wide areas, we give a hell of a lot away. We've got to stop that. You've got to stand up and try and stay on our feet. We seem to, give a lot of free kicks away in dangerous areas for me, and it puts you at risk and on the wrong foot. So look, when we play to our best, we know how we can play. Individuals' performances have not been where they are, and they've got to get back to that today, and forget about everything else. It's gone now. You can't do nothing about it. We've got to dig ourselves up out of a bit of a hole here, and the only way of doing that is by being confident and getting yourself into just blanking it out and mentally being strong. It's so important, and it's not easy. It's easy said than done, I guess. But this is a test, a real big test of character today.
Well, let's hope Leicester City can come through that test of character then in North London. Thanks to Walshy and to Matty Fry for their company. Before kick-off here, we'll hand over, though, to our commentary team of Chris Parrott and Dean Hammond, who are down there at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium to watch the Foxes hopefully record their first victory of the season against Spurs.
Because memories never fade, no matter how long. We'll still remember the moments of excitement and the impressions of Thailand. Amazing Thailand, now even more amazing.
Lamiat is the belief that perfection lies within the details, where the finest ingredients deserve the finest craftsmanship. In every pursuit of perfection, there is passion and perseverance, where attention to detail inspires a masterpiece that's balanced and in harmony. This is the Lamiat philosophy, brewed into every drop of Chang beer. This is the taste of Thai perfection. Chang beer. We brew friendship.
Good evening and welcome to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as Leicester City get ready for their latest Premier League game. 13 days has passed since the defeat to Brighton. The game against Aston Villa, of course, postponed last weekend, and it is Tottenham tonight. The sun is beginning to set over North London. The cockerel sits proud above this vast arena, and it gleams in the evening light with Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II's face on all 4 of the giant screens and on the LED ribbon boards. Tonight's match will be played in her memory, and before kick-off we will have a minute's silence. I'm Chris Parrott, alongside me the former Leicester City midfielder Dean Hammonds. Pitch looks absolutely perfect, Dean. We have a perfect vantage point. We are literally on halfway in the top tier of this stadium, which costs more than £1 billion to build. And when you come here, if you're lucky enough to come here, I don't know if I can say that's money well spent, given it costs that much, but my word, it is a sensational football stadium.
It is, Chris, and the detail of the stadium as well. It's fantastic. It really is. It's incredible. You're right. The pitch looks magnificent as well. I've been there a couple of times myself. The atmosphere is very, very good as well. It's really, really noisy. So, you know, we're very, very lucky. We're sitting on the halfway line. We have a brilliant view of the pitch. We're going to have a brilliant view of the game, and I'm really looking forward to this evening. I think it could be a very, very good game tonight.
3,000 Leicester City fans opposite us. Their second trip here. Leicester's third. They won here during lockdown. They were beaten last season. What will happen this evening? No sign of the players yet. They will be out in 4 minutes' time, and they will head straight to the centre circle. We're also going to have Emil Heskey and Ledley King laying flowers in memoriam to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. The atmosphere is sombre today, and the pre-match hype has been replaced with music more in keeping with the situation in the United Kingdom at the moment. But ultimately there will be a very important football match, Dean, and from a Leicester perspective, not the easiest test when you're looking for your first win of the season. How do you think Brendan Rodgers will approach it?
Well, we heard Brendan speak, and he was talking about the players. He wanted the players to continue to be brave, with and without the ball, whether they're pressing or whether they're in possession of the ball, to be proactive and take teams on. And I think that's when they do that, Leicester are at their best. I think Tottenham, in some circumstances, will allow you to do that because they give you possession or allow you to have possession of the ball and kind of sit in, and their strength is on the counter-attack, and they're very, very good at that. So they almost set traps. So Leicester need to be fully aware of that and careful of that. And concentration is needed today. But there's going to have to be a good team spirit today, a togetherness and a resilience, because Tottenham will have moments. And Leicester need to defend well, and it would be good to see Leicester get a clean sheet today. I think if I was a player in that dressing room, I'd be concentrating on the performance. Can we put a 90-minute performance in? And you can't always control the result. You know, a little bit of luck against you, a decision against you, that happens. But I think you can, to some extent, control the performance. And as a player, I'd be thinking about that. What can I do individually? What can we do collectively? What can I do for my teammate? Can I do a little bit more for my teammate playing next to me? And if you do that, more likely than not, you'll get a performance which leads to potentially you getting a result.
Wout Faes straight in for his debut. He may well have made it at Brighton had he not had that visa complication, but the only outfield, of course, player who came in the summer. This is a huge game for him. I mean, if I take you back to your debuts for all of the clubs you played for, including Leicester, A, how excited will he be, but B, how tough will it be against Richarlison, Harry Kane and Dejan Kulusevski?
Well, I'm not sure it gets any tougher, if I'm totally honest. But he looks like or I've heard, he's a character, he's a leader. He's got a personality, so I'm sure he'll relish that test. And your Premier League debut is always special, so he will be excited. There's no getting away with it. There'll be some anxiety as well. So that first few minutes, that first touch of the ball, maybe the first tackle, the first header, will be really, really important just to settle those nerves down. But he wouldn't have come to Leicester Football Club if he wasn't a good player. So I'm looking forward to seeing him today. He looks like a good size. He looks physically strong. I heard the boys speaking about it before during the show, that he's physical. He likes to tackle. So he'll need all of that today, and he'll need his teammates. And he couldn't be playing along a better player in Johnny Evans, who can guide him through the game.
Well, the two sets of players are in the tunnel, and Brendan Rodgers and Antonio Conte will lead the two sets of players out today. If you can picture it, it's a very different occasion. It's almost like a cup final, the way they are going to come out of the tunnel all together, and they will head to the centre circle for the minute silence in memory of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. They're due out in about 60 seconds time. Both coaches have black suits and black ties on. Behind Antonio Conte is Hugo Lloris, and behind Brendan Rodgers is Johnny Evans, of course. So here we go. The two teams are heading out of the tunnel, and instead of the roar that normally greets the two teams, an evening of reflection in North London ahead as Leicester City take on Tottenham. The Premier League returns, but it's a very different atmosphere to normal, as Brendan Rodgers and Antonio Conte lead the two teams straight to the centre circle, as Leicester City and Tottenham Hotspur pay their respects to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. 60,000 in, the normal roar has been silenced. The players are wearing black armbands, and we will very shortly have a minute silence, followed by the singing of God Save the King.
Following a lifetime of dedication, we recognise her immense contribution to the nation and around the world during more than 70 years of service. Please welcome to the pitch Ledley King and Emil Heskey, who will now lay floral tributes on behalf of both Tottenham Hotspur and Leicester City.
Emil Heskey and Ledley King, two club legends, laying two wreaths down, a very poignant moment on a very emotional night. They then head to their respective sides of the centre circle, and we will now have a minute's silence.
This will be followed by us singing the national anthem, God Save the King, led by Tottenham-born artist Lanya Matthews.
Darnell Matthews with God Save the King. Extremely emotional as the two sets of players now head over to the touchline. Brendan Rodgers and Antonio Conte walk past Ledley King and Emile Heskey. And after all of that, shortly, the football will start. The Leicester players run over to the travelling supporters. Johnny Evans and Hugo Lloris are in the middle of the pitch next to Simon Hooper. And now we hear the voices of 60,000 inside the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Team news: Leicester have made 3 changes from the loss at Brighton 13 days ago. Patson Daka leads the line with Kelechi Iheanacho and Jamie Vardy on the bench. Wout Faes makes his debut. Danny Ward's in goal, a back 4 of James Justin, Johnny Evans, Faes and Timothy Castagna, one of those who also returns. Yuri Tielemans, Wilfred Ndidi and Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, the midfield 3. James Maddison and Harvey Barnes alongside Daka. For Tottenham, no Son today. He has been rotated to the bench. They've made 4 changes from the loss at Sporting in the Champions League in midweek. Hugo Lloris is their goalkeeper. A back 3 of Davinson Sanchez, Eric Dyer and Clement Longley. Ivan Perisic is right wing back. Ryan Sessegnon is left wing back. Rodrigo Bentancur and Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, the midfield 2, with Dejan Kulusevski and Richarlison either side of Harry Kane, who has a quite extraordinary goal-scoring record against Leicester. His next strike will be his 20th. Right, we're all set. 5:30 p.m. on a Saturday. Patson Daka rolls it back to Wilfred Ndidi as Leicester City go in search of their first win of the season.